All right, what's up, everybody? Hey, hopefully you can hear me okay. This thing was glitching on me just a little bit there, but on today's training call, we're going to talk about having conversations to conversions. So, how do you actually go from talking to people to converting that into a sale and into helping them out? And believe it or not, it's way easier than it seems. I think agents overcomplicate this so much, right? We think so much more than we actually need to when it comes to closing a deal and being a good agent and being a top producer, right? It's a lot simpler than you might think. All right. The biggest crutch for most agents is they overthink this business, they overthink everything. All right. And after today's call, I'm going to simplify it down for you. So we're going to hit on that here shortly. But before we jump into that, hats off to you guys for such a phenomenal week so far. So many agents going big and posting big sales. I want to give Mariah a shout out. I saw her drop a huge policy. I think it was yesterday, over 200 and some dollars a month. So I know she's off to a great week, but so many of you are off to a great week. It's coming in here about the middle of the week. So go to the WhatsApp chat and post where you're sitting at so far in terms of production for the week here as we kick off Wednesday morning. So let's jump into the verse of the day. All right, it's Proverbs 19:21. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. So true. All right, is this verse, guys. We might have something that we think we're going to do, something that we think is in our future, but ultimately it's his plans that prevail. And there's something about walking in alignment with what you feel he's calling you to do that brings peace to your life. So, chances are as you wake up this Wednesday morning and you think about what you wanted to be when you were a kid, you're probably not doing that right now, right? But unless you're Corey, I know Corey woke up when he was like 5 years old and wanted to be a door-to-door insurance agent. I know that was always his dream, right? But all kidding aside, all right, we end up in the particular spot that God wants us to be to fulfill a purpose that he's called us to do. And so I would encourage you guys as you kick off this day, think about, why are you here right now? What's the purpose behind what you're doing? How many lives are you going to be able to impact it? You might not see it, guys, but think about the hundreds of thousands, heck, millions of dollars that some of you have provided a beneficiary, right? You're creating future financial peace for families on the worst day of their life. You're helping them with their Medicare, with their health, right? With their retirements, all these different things. Builders, you're helping your agents reach financial freedom, reach new goals. So there's a purpose behind why you're here doing what you're doing. And it's something that you should really investigate, right? Because we end up where he wants us to be. And when we can tap into that, it's amazing the doors that he unlocks for us when we're really trying to fulfill what we think he's calling us to do. So think about that verse as we jump into today. We're going to talk about going from conversations to conversions on today's call. So on today's training call, I want to walk you through the initial talk, right? The initial opening with you and your lead to how do you actually convert that, all right, into a sale. If you're an agent right now and you feel like you're talking to so many people, but you just, for whatever reason, you can't get them to sign, you can't get them to across the finish line, right? This call is going to be for you. And I promise you guys, take some notes because it's just some small things, small tweaks to how you're talking and how you're presenting. That's going to take you from just prospecting to actually closing people. All right. So let's talk about the very first concept, guys, which is creating urgency. People will only act if they have a specific reason to act right now. All right. I'll give you a good example of this. Okay. I've got this tree. All right. In our front yard. All right. It was like off to the right of the house. This was sometime last year. This massive pine tree. All right. This thing's probably pushing like I don't even know, 70, 80 feet tall, right? It's huge. And we had a storm last year, and that tree, I don't know if it got struck by lightning or what happened or the wind, but it cracked halfway up the tree. And so half of the tree fell over, but the other half was still standing. And then the section that fell over actually got hung up and caught on another tree. So it was like, picture what that would look like, right? This huge half of this pine tree is just waiting to fall, and it can't fall because it's stuck. But I know that with the next windstorm, right, the thing's going to go blow down. We've got little kids. I don't want it to fall on anybody. So what did I do? I spent like the majority of that morning on a Saturday calling tree companies to have somebody come out here and cut the rest of the tree down, clean it up, and make sure that it's not a hazard anymore. All right. I didn't care what the price was, right? I didn't have an option but to purchase that tree company's services because the tree was about to fall down and I didn't want it to hurt anybody. All right. So that's urgency, right? Now, I would be lying to you guys if I don't look out there in my front yard right now and I see some other trees that are like, hey, we should eventually cut that down. They're healthy. They're no risk to anything, no hazard right now, right? But they're just blocking other trees, right? It'd be nice to cut some out and open things up a little bit in the woods, but none of them are falling over, right? So I've not done it because I don't really have that. I'm not that urgent to do it. Versus the other scenario, I had to act that day to get that tree cut down. So when you guys are presenting to your client, think about how your tonality and how your sense of urgency sounds, right? Like I know my tree example is a little bit extreme, but guys, people don't know what's going to happen this afternoon. All right. They could get in a car wreck. They could get diagnosed with cancer. They could all crazy things happen to people in the blink of an eye. Right. And it's a lot like that tree. All right. That was just waiting to fall over. I had to act before it fell over. Your clients should have that same level of urgency. And whether you're presenting in person or on the phone, you really want to create that scenario where you have to act today. You can't wait another day to fix your insurance. All right, guys, insurance is a risk. It's there for a risk, right? And if you're waiting, you're just creating even more of a risk for yourself, right? What would happen if something were to happen to me today? I know Alicia and the kids would be fine. They would be taken care of. I've got enough insurance money, right, to make sure they're financially set. But if I didn't have that, what would happen? They could lose the house, right? They could lose the car. They could, whatever the case is, right? They could be in a bind. And guys, you want to create this sense of urgency with your clients because that's what's going to take your initial conversation and actually close it. All right. Is this sense of urgency. So let's dive into how you actually create it. Number one, you've got to paint the cost of waiting. What do I mean by that? Paint the picture of what would happen if they wait. All right. How do you paint that picture? Guys, you ask probing questions, right? Miss Betty, if something were to happen to you tomorrow, who would be responsible for all of the final expense costs, the burial, the cremation, your house payment, like who is getting that burden? Okay, paint that picture. You want your client to understand what's actually going to happen if they were to pass away unexpectedly. What does that look like for their loved ones? All right, guys, like it's real simple. Most Americans don't have, $20,000 sitting in a savings account. If you look at the statistics, most people don't, especially people in their 20s and 30s, right? Which are generally the age of a lot of your clients' kids. All right. So what would happen to them if something happened to you today? Can your son come up with $15,000 to pay for the burial? What are they going to do? GoFundMe? That doesn't work very well, right? Like this picture. Like the funeral home's not going to wait for your GoFundMe to get funded. All right. They want their money right then and there. So you got to paint that picture. Okay. And really dive into the emotional aspect of what would happen if they continue to push this off. All right. Maybe you're sitting down with a client who has insurance already. What would happen, right? If let's say they've got 10,000, but a burial costs 15. Why are you waiting for the extra 5? You're as young and as healthy as you're ever going to be. Most likely, the longer you wait, the more it costs, right? Guys, if you're sitting down with somebody and they're like, hey, I'm young, I'm healthy, really don't need insurance right now. But what about when you do need it? Right, guys? It's the most unfortunate thing as an agent when you get a lead for somebody that's on hospice care and they've waited their whole, they weren't expecting to go on hospice, but for whatever reason, cancer, things kick up, right? Now they need insurance. They're only thinking about it because they weren't thinking about it when they were healthy. Now they can't get it, right? They can't get coverage immediately. So paint the picture of what is the consequence of waiting. All right. If you wait until your next year's birthday when you have a bigger budget, it's going to be more expensive. Maybe you get put on a prescription. Maybe, insurance changes, the rates change. It's even more money. So paint the picture, guys, of why somebody needs to actually act on this right now. Right. So let's talk about, it's echoing here for some reason. Not sure there. Hold on one second, guys. All right, I'm back with you. Sorry for the echo there. So, number 2, all right, build an urgency. Share success stories. Okay, guys, people like to feel like they're a part of a bigger thing other than just themselves. So, if you've helped a client in the past, you want to share that story. All right, share how your services have impacted somebody else. If you don't have a story to paint that picture, take one of your coaches, all right, in your call to close thread. I promise you, somebody in your call to close thread has a story that you can share. All right. One of my stories I share all the time is I had a husband and a wife. All right. They were both in their 50s, both very healthy. Wife was still working. Husband was waiting on Social Security's disability to kick in that hadn't been approved yet. They didn't think it was within their budget to get insurance. I talked to them about the importance of it. If they could spare $50 each a month, less than $100 or less a month, they could be covered. They reluctantly took that out. All right, very reluctantly. I wasn't sure they were going to keep it. I thought it might be a chargeback. The wife unexpectedly went into heart failure 3 weeks later and passed away. No history of heart issues. Just she was 57 years old. Out of nowhere, she got filled up with fluid somehow and passed away in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. They have no idea like where it just come out of nowhere. The husband got a $13,000 check. That's the only thing that kept him uh, able to live in his apartment. All right, for like a year was that check. They made one payment on the policy, right? So share stories, guys. Things come up unexpectedly. You want to build that urgency. All right. So if you're not sharing stories of how insurance have impacted other people, you're not really building that urgency, right? I would also say when you're sharing success stories, this is a two-way street. You want your client to share potentially a success story of their own, right? Miss Betty, when your parents passed away, did they have life insurance? All right, what is she going to say? She's either going to say no, and it created a huge financial bind for them, or she's going to say yes, and it was the reason that they were able to take care of things. You want your client to realize that, right? If your client has lost a loved one, which most of the time is the case, whether it's a parent, a spouse, a child, somebody, brother, sister, cousin, they've seen the effect of what either having insurance has done or what not having it has done. Have them talk about that with you. right? Let them see the importance, all right, behind actually having it. It's going to create urgency. When your client says, yeah, my cousin passed away, they didn't have insurance, and my family, we all had to come together to get the money. Guys, that right there alone, coming out of their mouth, has just created the urgency where they realize, like, I need this, right? So make sure you're sharing stories. All right. Selling the product, guys, insurance is boring. Nobody cares what riders your insurance policy has. I know so many agents love talking about the riders, and guys, nobody cares, right? People just care that they're protected at the last day of their life, right? Riders are cool, but the product itself is not going to sell it. So if you're struggling converting conversations into conversions, right? It's because you're probably very product heavy. Like, you're trying to talk about all the bells and whistles of the insurance product, the carrier, blah, 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 blah. Nobody cares, right? People buy off of emotion and they buy off of urgency, and they just want to know that when they die, their family is okay. Like, that's their biggest concern. They don't need to know all the ins and outs of whatever product you're selling. They just need to know that you know how it works and that they're going to be okay. That's what cares. When that guy came to cut down the tree in my yard, I didn't walk over to him and say, hey, what kind of chainsaw are you using? Right? Are you using a steel? Are you using a Husqvarna, an Eco? What size blade does it have? How many teeth are on the blade? What kind of gas did you put in the thing? I don't care. Just cut down the tree, right? That's how your clients are. Your clients want to buy off of stories, off of urgency, off of emotion, not off of the technical side of what the insurance policy has inside of it. So if you're an agent who has a ton of conversations, but you struggle closing, it's because you're probably talking way too much about the technical side and not enough about the actual effect, right? The emotional side of what insurance does. So share those success stories. All right. I promise you, a story that you have, or that somebody you know, right, another agent in the company has, you share that story, it will sell the policy tenfold over than just talking about, what the riders are inside of that thing. So number 3, let's talk about this. Ask timeline-based questions. What do I mean by that? Guys, you want to know that when you sell that policy and you leave that house, it's good. It's not going to charge back. They're not going to have buyer's remorse, right? They're not going to have any of these things pop up. You want to figure out where your client, where your prospect's head is at in terms of how urgent are they to buy the product. Okay. Now this is really geared more towards somebody who doesn't have insurance, right? If you're talking to somebody that already has it, well, obviously they think it's important to have it. That's an even easier sell. But let's talk about some hard ones. Let's talk about, you're sitting with Miss Betty. She's 74. She doesn't have insurance. There's a reason she doesn't have it. All right. And you want to figure out, why has she been procrastinating to not buy the insurance, right? So guys, if I'm sitting down with somebody, they're in their 70s or 80s, heck, even 60s, and they don't have life insurance, I'm just going to ask them why they don't have it, right? I'll say, hey, Miss Betty, if we could find a program for you that fits all of your needs, right? Covers your son, right? You said your son's going to be the beneficiary, gives him enough money not to have to struggle, and it's within your budget. Would you say that you're ready to go ahead and lock that in today? And if not, what would be stopping you from actually doing that? Price, budget. Let's talk about that. Guys, I will actually say that to somebody in the presentation because I want to know where their head is at, right? It was just like when I had a construction company and I would go and quote different jobs, right? Or when I was building houses for people, right? And there was an issue, right? I would say, what's your actual time frame for wanting this project done, right? Are we in the planning phase? Are we in the preparation phase? Are we in the phase where we just want to get an idea of how much it costs so we could save up our money and then do this thing next year? Where's our head at, right? Or are you wanting me to have my crew show up tomorrow and start doing this thing? I always asked timeline-based questions because I wanted to just have an idea of what objections are going to come up. How do I overcome them? And how do I get this thing scheduled and on the books, right? And it's the same for insurance sales. You want to ask their head at, right? Are you just shopping around, right? Did you fill this lead out because you're just shopping around coverage? You're not really ready to buy it yet. Like, where's your head at with it? And guys, if they're going to tell you what is going to stop you from closing that deal, right? They'll say, well, yeah, Ryan, I was shopping around. I don't really think I'm ready to. I don't think it's within my budget right now. Money's kind of tight, but I just wanted to have an idea. Well, guys, that's my objection. That's what's going to stop my conversation from becoming a conversion. Now I can fix that. I can overcome that objection easy by building urgency, getting the right budget, getting them a starter plan, right? I can overcome that. But it's because I asked the question. Now I know what the objection is. All right. And a lot of times you'll ask this and they'll be like, Ryan, I want it. I just, I've got denied in the past. Nobody's really been able to help me with it. Easy, right? We close the deal there. So get the timeline for when your client is actually wanting to do this. If you're sitting down with somebody who doesn't have coverage, literally ask them, why do they not have it? Right? Mr. Jack, I'll be honest with you, most people usually have a plan in place. If you don't mind me asking, do you not have one because you just didn't really know like where to go to get it? Has it not been important to you? Has it not been something you think you're going to need? What's your thoughts? I want him to talk to me. I want to figure out where's the objection, right? Like, where is it at so I can take it off of the table and close the deal. But guys, if you're just pushing through the presentation and you're not asking these timeline-based questions, you're not going to close it because there's a reason they don't have it, right? Maybe Mr. Jack is 75, no prescriptions. He thinks he's going to live forever. He's going to hit you with the same objection he gave the last agent. All right. So you got to pull out these questions, right? Pull out the answers so you can actually convert your conversation into it being a closed deal. And the agents that struggle are just the agents that they just don't know how to do that. Right, guys? And the easiest way to do it is just be transparent. Ask them the question. All right. Everybody's just people, right? What's the worst they're going to tell you? I've never had a negative response from a client when I've asked them that question. I've actually had very positive feedback, right? It makes them realize like, wow, Ryan, dude, why am I waiting on this? I'm just being stupid, right? Like it opens up the door for you when you're transparent and when you're able to walk your client through the process. Guys, when I'm selling, okay, I don't want it to be my idea that they buy insurance. I want it to be their idea. I'm just going to guide them along the pathway to where they realize like, hey, this is actually, I should do this today. I shouldn't wait any longer, right? Tone and body language is key. Guys, you don't want to be like over the top pressuring. All right. You're going to see some of the best agents, some of the top agents are the most laid back, non-salesy, they're not like a salesman whatsoever. They're just normal people. Those are the best agents because their tone and their body language is just relaxed, right? It's relaxed, no pressure situation. It's like they're talking to their friend, talking to their family. That leads you to converting. But guys, if you're like in a house or you're on the phone, right, and you're like very uptight and you're like flipping through the presentation booklet, but you're not being personable at all right, then it doesn't work. All right, let's talk about tone. How you say things, guys, is more important than what you say. All right, so what do I mean by that? When you're in a house or you're on the phone, your tone dictates how that conversation goes. And you have to be mindful of that. Here's a good example. Whether you're doing a door approach or you're on the phone and the person answers the phone, your tone sets the pace for the entire conversation. it literally sets the pace for whether or not they want to talk to you. So if somebody answers the door and they're very grumpy, I'm going to have a good uplifting tone. That's going to transfer to them. But if I'm also quiet and timid, I'm not closing that deal. If they answer the phone and they're like, you're the 15th person to call me about this, right? You want to come back with another tone that's going to change the dynamic of that conversation. So your body language and your tone matter. Guys, the way you can tell if you're connected with somebody, all right, and it's hard to do this on phone sales, but if you're doing in-person sales, you can watch their body language. If they're mirroring you, meaning if I say, "Hey, Miss Betty, we could say that this is important to you, right?" And I'm nodding my head, and Miss Betty is like, "Yeah, Ryan, is important to me." And she's nodding her head back. Done deal, closed. I already know we're getting it, right? Because she's mirroring me. That tells me we're actually connected, right? And that's a good way. But if I'm trying to talk and she's not mirroring me, she's watching the TV, she's looking down, she's not paying attention, not connected, right? Like I'm not closing that deal. So I need to get her connected with me. So body language matters. Guys, when you're sitting down face to face with somebody, if they're on the edge of their chair, you want to be on the edge of your chair. If they're laying back like this, you want to lay back like this. You want to mirror them, because then what happens is they start mirroring you and they don't even realize it. So your tone and your body language matters. If they're sitting back in their chair and you're like on the edge of your chair, like right up in their face, people don't like that, right? Like you got to mirror them. They're going to mirror you. It will walk you to the finish line and you'll close that deal. So all of these little things are really important, right? And then lastly, guys, as we wrap up today's training call, you want to align the urgency with the solution. So if I just spent all this time building urgency, all right, and talking about how important it is, and she's telling me it's important to her and we've got it, offer the solution. Don't ask for it. Okay. What do I mean by that? It's simple. Miss Betty, I know we talked about all these things. I know we talked about your beneficiary being your daughter. I know you talked about how you still owe a little bit on the house, how your final wish is a burial, right? We talked about how that could be $12,000 to $15,000. I know it's a lot on your plate. I'm going to get that fixed for you. Okay. Would you say it's between $100 to $150 a month is manageable for you? If we could solve all of those problems, would that budget work for you? I'm aligning the urgency with the solution, getting the budget, finding what the budget is, and then boom, I'm just opening up the application and filling it out, right? I'm not asking Miss Betty, do you want to do Omaha, Transamerica? We could do this company. We could pick this one. Like, no, I'm telling her the exact company that we need to do, giving the solution, just like a doctor would. You come in with a broken foot, like he's not going to ask you what you want to do. He's going to fix it. He's going to tell you need surgery, a cast. This is the solution to your urgent problem. You need to be like that as the agent. All right, guys. So that's all I got for you guys on today's call. If you struggle, if you're talking to so many people, but you're just not getting the deal done, it's because you're missing that. You're missing everything that we just talked about on today's call, and it's simple to fix it. Just ask probing questions and you'll build that sense of urgency. So I appreciate you guys for jumping on here today. Let's go crush this Wednesday, and we will be back here on Friday.